Alright, so this is a tutorial on how to build a VRChat world from start to finish. What I make here is going to be available for download in the description, so if you want, you can feel free to grab that. I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can. I'm going to be using Blender and Unity, and I'm going to be using asset packs for props and furniture and stuff, which I'll show you. Basically, I'm going to break this up into like several parts, and each part is going to be listed in the description, and you can click to jump to that part, whichever part you need. That's going to be beginning with building the base, texturing, importing assets, bringing it into Unity, bringing in materials, textures, making colliders, pickups, lighting, and then mirror triggers, upload, and then I'll show you quest optimization at the very end, which is super simple. This is going to be like a really simple world. Basically, it's just going to be like a plane with some asset props on it, and it's going to be available for quest. All right, so to begin, I'm just going to build the base of the world, and I want this to be super simple, not big at all. I have screencast going so you can see what I'm doing here in the bottom left. I'm going to try to explain everything that I'm doing for people who aren't really used to Blender. So just some quick Blender controls is if you want to rotate around your area, all you have to do is press the middle mouse button and it'll do that. If you hold shift and press the middle mouse button, you can drag your screen around. And if you are moving around and your camera gets out of whack and you can't really scroll in on something, what you can do is you can press the object that you want, or any object really, go and press the period key or the delete key on the number pad, and that will reorient your camera to whatever object that you have selected. So to begin, I'm just going to select everything by pressing A in object mode and then press X, delete. And then while I'm still in object mode, I'm going to bring in a plane. And then I'm also going to press Shift A, mesh, bring in a cube. I'm going to press N to get options over here, and I'm just in item, I'm going to change the dimensions to 0.2, 0.2, and 1.8. So basically this just means this is 0.2 meters, 0.2 meters, and 1.8 meters tall. This is what I use to scale my worlds. It's not the best method to doing that. I know a lot of people, what you should do is you should bring in like an avatar or something that you're used to using, and then you can scale to that avatar, or an avatar that's like a certain height. 6 feet is usually the height I build around, which is 1.8 meters. So I just use this and kind of just use this as scale. Honestly, I'm just kind of being lazy with it, but I always keep that in there just so that I know how big things are going to get. So I'm going to go back to my plane here, and I'm going to select it in object mode, press tab to go into edit mode, and press S to scale, and then press Shift Z to lock it to the X and Y axis. And then I'm just going to scale this up. And I think that's going to be the first room that I make. I'm going to duplicate this because so what I want is I want a platform here, I want stairs going down, and then I want a platform down here, and then maybe like a little balcony that goes out, and I'll put walls and a roof on this whole thing. So I'm going to duplicate this, so I have it selected in object mode. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. I'm going to press X to lock it to, no, I'm going to press Y to lock it to the Y axis. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to bring it over. Then I'm going to, in object mode, I'm going to press G and then lock it to the Z axis, and then I'm going to just bring it down like this high. And just so I can check to see how high that is, I'm going to grab this object here, press Shift D to just move another copy of it. I'm going to press G and then Z again, bring it down here, and I think we can go a little bit lower. So I'm just going to grab both of these by selecting them in object mode and press G and then Z to lock it to the Z axis and bring it down. And I think that should be enough. And like I was saying, I want this part of the room to go further out to be like a balcony. I'll have both these areas under a roof of some kind. So I'm just going to select this object, press tab, press 2 to go into edge mode, which is right here, and you can also select these. I'm going to grab this edge, and then I'm going to press G, lock it to the Y axis, and I'm just going to bring this out. Now, another thing that I want here, I want there to be like a wall in the back here, so there's not just like empty space right here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab this object, I'm going to press tab, go into edit mode, then I'm going to press 3 to go into face. select, and then I'm going to grab this face, press G and Z, G, then Z, and bring it down. That made a cube or a rectangle. One thing to know is with the plane, since I went into a specific direction, it actually acted in a way to where my normals in these faces were flipped. And the way we can check that and test that is if you go up here to this option up here in the overlays, press the drop down and press face orientation. You can check to see what orientation your faces are. So you can see this whole thing is red now, basically meaning that this is the back face of this object, which would be invisible in Unity, and you would see right through this thing. So what we can do is in edit mode, we can press A to select this whole thing, and then you can go to mesh, normals, and press flip, and it's going to flip all those UVs to be facing the right way. And then we can go back over here to the overlays and press face orientation again and get out of that. So now we're back in object mode by pressing tab. I'm going to just grab this in object mode, press G, press Y to lock it, and bring it in. I'm going to grab, I want to make stairs down here now. I'm going to move this, which is where objects spawn at. If I hold shift and press the right mouse button, I can move this around anywhere I want. So I'm just going to bring it over here. I'm going to press shift A and go to mesh. I'm going to bring in another plane. I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode, S to scale, and I'm going to lock it to the Y axis, and I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to go back to object mode, bring the thing I'm using to scale. I'm going to bring that over here, pressing G to move, and shift Z to lock it to the XY axis. And I just want to be able to see like how big this stair is, and it's 2 meters wide, so this length is actually taller than the character here. So I selected it in object mode. I'm gonna press tab to go into edit mode. I'm gonna press S to scale. I'm gonna lock it to the X axis, and I'm just bring it in a little bit. And while I'm still in edit mode, I'm gonna press E to extrude this object, and I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit. And I think that should be big enough for a stair. So I'm gonna use a modifier now. I just want to move this in place first. I'm gonna move it like up here. So I'm gonna press G and then shift Z. I'm gonna move this over here, and I'm just eyeballing everything. I know a lot of people like to get super precise. I don't. I just kind of eyeball everything I do, and everything usually works out. All right, I just moved that up to be over there by pressing G to move, and then using the ZXY keys to lock it to specific axes. So I'm going to go over to this little wrench button over here, and I'm going to add a modifier. I'm going to add the array modifier. So basically this will duplicate your object at a certain distance, however many times that you want. So I'm just going to try to get into a stair formation. So doing one thing is going in the wrong direction. I'm going to press that to 0. I'm going to press this to 1, and that is going in the right direction. And then I'm going to go into the Z axis, and I'm going to do -1, and that brings this down by just one of these things. So I want to do more than that. So I'm going to bring it down like maybe 3 times. And then I'm going to increase the count here to bring it all the way to the floor. Looks like I only need 12 here. So I'm going to select this. I haven't applied this modifier yet. I'm just going to leave it alone for now. I'm going to press G, and then I'm going to press I'm going to press X to lock it to the X axis. I'm going to bring it over just a little bit more. And then I want to bring in another cube because I want there to be like some way for these stairs to like be attached to one another and actually make sense. So I'm going to do Shift A, Mesh, Cube, and I'm going to press Tab to go into edit mode, scale, and I'm going to lock it to the X axis. And I'm just going to scale this to however big I want it. And I think I'm just going to texture these wood colors when I get to it. Back into edit mode, scale Z. I'm going to bring this up like that. I'm going to go back into object mode, And I'm just going to move this into place by pressing G and locking it to the axes that I want. G, X, tab. I'm going to go press 3 for the face. I'm going to grab this. And I'm just going to move it by pressing G. Press G, Z, and I'm just going to bring it down like that. So that looks good. I'm going to press 3 on the keypad to change my camera so I can look at it straight on like this. I'm going to do Shift Z to go into wireframe mode, and now, and basically I can hit wireframe mode up here too, so we were in this view, but by hitting Shift Z it brought me into this mode. So I can see that these are kind of lined up in the middle, and I think that's good. I want to duplicate this object, so I'm going to do Shift D while having it selected in object mode. I'm going to press X to lock it to the X axis. Then I'm going to bring it over here. And now we have stairs. This is looking pretty good. It's super simple, like I said. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have like a plain back wall here, and then I'm going to have maybe windows all through the sides down here, and maybe have like this going off, or like the entrance kind of going off at an angle, which that probably doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to select this. I'm going to just build this back wall off of this object here. So I'm just going to select it. I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to press Control R to do an edge loop. So once I do that, you can see that it lights up yellow whichever spot I have it going, and when it's on the right one, which I want it to be right here, you just click, and now you can move it freely. So once you click, it'll lock it down, but for now I'm going to move it all the way back here, and then I'm going to click, and now it's locked down right there. I'm going to press 3 to go back into face mode, and then I'm going to select this face. I'm going to press E to extrude. By the way, E, when you extrude, it automatically locks it to like whichever direction the normals were facing. In this instance, it is the Z direction, so I'm just going to move it up here. And I'm going to select my scale character cube rectangle thing, and then I'm going to press G, Shift Z to lock it to the XY and bring it over here just to kind of see how tall this wall is. And I think I'm going to go a bit higher, so I'm selecting this object again, pressing tab, pressing 3, selecting this, pressing G, locking it to the Z axis. And I'm just going to make it that big. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is make some windows. So I don't want windows going down like here. I kind of want the wall to go down with the angle of the staircase. So I'm going to select this object again in object mode, press tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to press Control R to do another edge loop right here. I'm just going to click it right in the center. So just click twice so that it's in the center. I'm going to use a tool over here in these options. So this is the loop cut tool, which is what we were doing by pressing Control R. If you click it and then drag it over, you can see that there's this offset edge loop cut tool. And I'm going to choose that. Basically what it does is, since I have this edge here selected, if I click and drag, it'll actually do 2 loop cuts from that cut. And I'm just going to drag this all the way to each end. And the reason why I did it like that is so that each one of these is the same distance from the end of this rectangle here. And then I'm going to go back up to here, which is the select box, which is your like normal cursor. I'm going to press W to get there. You could just click it though. I'm going to press 3 to go back to face mode. I'm going to select this and this, and then I'm going to press E to extrude, and it's just going to come out. I'm going to bring it to right there. Then I'm going to go press 2, go to the edge option, edge select, and I'm going to select this edge and that edge, and I'm going to press G to move, press Z to lock to the Z axis, and I'm just going to bring this down to like right there. And I think that looks really cool. Nice. Actually, I'm going to keep going with this. Here, actually, let's see how tall this is in reference to our character rectangle here. I'm just going to select this G, Shift Z, The reason why I keep pressing Shift Z when I move things is that way it just doesn't rise or go lower than where it's already at, and I can just like move it around the scene while it's still like on the ground. This part's pretty low. I kind of like it, so I'm gonna go back to this object, click it, and then I'm gonna hit Tab to go into edit mode, 3 to go to face mode. I'm gonna select this again, and I'm gonna press E to extrude, and I'm just gonna extrude this out to like right there. I think that looks good. And now what I want to do is I'm gonna press E again to extrude to like right there. And now I'm still in face select mode, so I'm gonna select this face, and then I'm hold Shift, and I'm gonna select that face, and then I'm gonna press E to extrude, and I'm just gonna bring this up to like right there. Actually, I don't know how high I want this, so I'm gonna make the ceiling real quick. So let's go back to object mode by hitting Tab. I'm going to press Shift A to go to mesh, and I'm going to make another cube. And then I'm going to press G to move this around, and Shift Z to bring it somewhere like right there. Press G again, press Z to bring it up. I'm going to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to press S to scale, Z, and then I'm going to press 7 on the number pad to get an overview shot, and I'm going to do Shift Z to get the wireframe, and I'm just going to scale this out to be the roof of this platform or of this room. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to do scale, so it scales, but it's scaling in all directions right now, and I don't want it to scale in the Z-axis. That's the height, and that's the height axis. So I'm going to do Shift Z, and so now it's only scaling in the X and Y, and I think that's good. I'm going to press G to move this. I'm going to do Shift Z to keep it on the same level. Then I'm going to press 3 to make sure I'm still in face select mode. I'm just going to click off of this object so nothing's selected. There's a face here that I want to select, so I'm just going to, I don't really like this box option tool, so I'm actually going to press W a couple times until I have this option here, which is like the drag thing. I like that one better, so I'm going to hit that, and then I'm going to select this face, and now I have this face selected. I'm going to press 7 again, Shift Z to go into wireframe, and then I'm going to press G, Y to bring it. I'm going to bring it like right there, and I'm going to make these little pillar things here, I'm going to make that the same size as this top part. So I'm actually going to go back to this, select that. I'm still in object mode. I'm going to press G, press Z to bring it down, and I'm just going to bring it down so that this wall and then this object intersect with each other. Alright, now I'm going to go back to this object, and I have it selected in object mode. Press Tab to go into edit mode. I want to grab both these top faces, which they're already grabbed, but if they weren't, what I would normally do is I'll usually like quickly jump to the wireframe and then like select both of those and then jump back. I'm going to press G and Z to lock it to the Z axis to bring it up. Then I'm going to press G and Y to move it out this way. That looks cool. And for the windows on the sides here, I'm going to make I'm going to do like pillar type things where I'm just going to have these pillars across the sides here, and then I will take like one plane to use as the window. That should be good. So let's do that. Alright, I'm going to grab this object and I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate it, and then I'm going to press Shift Z to keep it locked on the X and Y axis, and I'm going to bring this to like right here. I'm going to go into edit mode, and in edit mode, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pillar and I'm going to bring it like all the way down to the bottom here, and then I'm just going to use an array modifier to bring it all the way over, and then I will make the window after that. One thing you want to do is, so because we had scaled this object using this option over here, the 0.2, 0.2, 1.8, this means that a lot of the information, like that scaling information, does not get translated over to anything else because we did it in object mode. To fix that doesn't really make any sense if you don't know Blender, but basically, if you scale something or rotate something in object mode, what you need to do is have that object selected in object mode, press Control A, and then press Apply Rotation and Scale. So the program knows that those rotations in that scale that you did actually needs to take effect on the object. Otherwise, it won't know, and it's going to screw up your UV mapping, and it's going to screw up like anything else you do to it. Sometimes you won't even notice. It took me forever to learn that. Alright, so what should this look like? I don't know. I'm just going to press Shift-Z to go into wireframe, Tab to go into edit mode, 3 to select faces. I'm going to grab this face down here, press Shift-Z, go back. Actually, I'm going to go back. And then I'm going to press GZ. And then I pressed A to select everything while I was in edit mode on this object, so I'm selecting everything that's on this object. And I'm pressing S to scale. I'm going to press Shift-Z to lock it to the XY. I'm just going to make it thicker. Back in object mode, I'm going to press G, lock it to the X-axis right there. I'm going to go back into edit, press 3 for face. I'm going to grab this top face and I'm going to press G, Z. I want this pillar to be like fancier, but I don't know what to do with it. Let's make it curvy. So this is what I'm gonna do. Have this object selected, press Tab to go into edit mode, press 2 to go to edge select, press Control R to do an edge loop, and scroll up on your mouse scroll and make a bunch of edge loops right there. Actually, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to try to make sure that there's at least one cut right in the middle there. Now, while I have edge select still selected, I'm going to grab this object and I'm going to hold Alt down and click it so it grabs all the edges around this entire object. So just so you can see that again, by holding down Alt, I can select multiple edges at the same time. So I'm going to just grab the one in the middle and I'm going to enable proportional editing. So proportional editing will create like a circle and it will show you the amount of other vertices that your movements affect based on the curve you set and then how big that circle is. So I'm going to just turn this on. I'm going to do something like sharp so it has that type of movement. So I'm going to press S. You can see the circle. If I scroll in and out, I can choose the amount of vertices I want to affect. And I'm just going to like scale this in. Actually, I'm going to press Shift Z to lock to the X and Y axis. And that's my pillar looking epic. Actually let's do the array modifier now. I think I'm going to do a couple other things, but I'm going to start with the array modifier. So go to add modifier, hit array. Right now it's moving it in this direction, which is not what we want, which is the X direction. This correlates with X, Y, Z right here. So I'm just going to press 0 there. I'm going to press 1. And I'm just going to like move this until it seems good. Maybe I'll do like 8. Or something. That looks kind of good. I'm going to add another array modifier. This time I do want it on the X axis. So that second modifier, the second array modifier is located at the bottom here. So I'm going to do, instead of 1 in the positive direction, I'm going to bring it into the negative direction so that I can put it on the other side. Actually, no, that's not what I want to do because that's not going to make the proper changes. What I want to use is a mirror modifier. So the mirror modifier is down here. This is pretty self-explanatory. This is going to rotate based on where your center point is. And right now I have the center point of this object is in the exact center, so you can't actually see my mirror on the x-axis because it's just mirroring in the center, which is, so it's like directly right on top of itself. You can change that by by selecting an object, going into object up here, set origin, and you can choose something else. Right now it is at the center of the mass, or it might not be. No, it is. If you wanted to select something else, let's say you wanted this vertices to be where your origin is, you could select that vertice in edit mode. You can press Shift S, and then you can press cursor to selected. So your cursor jumps there, then you can go back to object mode, and then you can hit this object again with the object selected, set origin to 3D cursor, and then it change it right there. And then you can see that it actually changed how the mirror acted, because now it's mirroring on that vertice instead of like directly in the center. But that's not where I want that to be. I want that to be all the way over on this side. So I'm going to select an object that it mirrors, and I'm going to just try to see if this middle object will work. I'm just going to select that, and it does, because it's directly in the middle of both of these, so that kind of makes sense. You could choose literally anything, so like if you chose this, it would mirror equally on both sides based on this object. And you can see as I'm moving this object, it moves the mirror. But I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to choose this platform again, and that's exactly where I want it. I think what I'm going to add in here is lights. So because I have modifiers making all these pillars, all I have to do is edit the one main pillar, and that will, the changes will show up on all the other ones as well. So what I want to do is, so I've got this selected, I'm going into edit mode, I've got face selection selected, and then I'm just gonna select these three, and then I'm gonna select just that one, and then I'm gonna select just that one. And then I'm going to press I, and I'm just going to bring this in. I'm going to, so that I is inset, and then it just makes that simple. And then while both of those faces are selected, I'm going to press E, and then I'm going to bring it in so that it goes into the pillar. And I'm going to put an emissive material in there so that shines. I kind of don't want to put windows in, actually. I don't think I need to. I think it looks pretty good. I'll put windows right just at the top area. So I'm just going to use the plane for that. So I'm going to do I'm going to hold shift, and then I'm going to press the right mouse button so that I can move my cursor to right there, just so that it's easier for me. Shift A, mesh, plane, and then I'm going to press, while in object mode with the plane selected, I'm going to press R, Y to rotate, and I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees. I'm using a snap tool by holding down Control when I do that. There we go. Basically what I did there was I pressed 1 and Shift Z to look at it in wireframe so I can see that it actually is straight up. Hit Shift Z again to go back to the normal option. And now I'm just going to press G, Shift Z, and I'm just going to move this around. Going into edit mode, pressing 2 for edges. I'm going to select this edge, press G, Y. Oh, I still have proportional editing on, so I'm going to Control Z, and I'm going to turn that off. Now if I hit G, Y, I'm going to bring this to here. And I'm going to select the top one, and I'm going to press G, Z, bring that up. And then I'm going to press 7 on the number pad to get a top view. And I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to select the whole thing. And I'm going to mirror it over here, but I'm going to do it manually. I'm not going to use the modifier. So I'm just going to do Shift D to duplicate it. Press R, Z to lock to the Z axis. Press Control to snap it. And then I'm going to rotate it all the way around, press G to move again. I'm going to lock it to the X axis. I'm going to press G, lock it to the Y axis, bring it over, and now I've got these shapes over here. So that's pretty epic. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You know what? Let's add some lights to the roof here, and then we can texture this thing. So I'm just gonna do Shift A, mesh, cylinder, and then down here there's options. So I'm gonna click that to open it up. And right now we have 32 vertices around this object, making this cylinder. And I don't want 32, that's kind of a lot. I'm gonna just press 6, and I'm gonna just make pretty much a hexagon, which is a 6-sided cylinder here. Once I click off of that option goes away, which is fine. You shouldn't need it again. So yeah, so I'm gonna scale this down to like a size of a light. I'm gonna press tab, scale, back into object mode, GZ. I want it to be a bit bigger. I'm gonna go back to edit mode, scale, shift Z. That's a bit too big. Scale Z, I'm gonna just scale it on the Z axis now. And that should be good. Going back into edit mode, I'm just gonna place it a bit better. Like right there. I press 7 to get the top view, shift Z to go into wireframe, shift Z to get out and go down. Just gonna rotate around. Let's go into edit mode, go into face select by pressing 3, select this face, press I to inset, and then I'm going to press E and I'm going to extrude this in, and it's a pretty dope light. Actually, let's bevel the edges on this just so I can show you beveling. So going into edit mode, I'm going to press Alt and select this edge loop, and it selects all of those, and then I'm going to press Alt Shift and select all of those. Now to do a bevel in Blender, all you have to do is you have to hold Control B, and now you just have to drag and your bevel is created. If your bevel's having weird issues, it probably means you scaled in object mode or something. You can just go back to object mode, press Control A, rotation and scale like we did before, and it should fix it. If you're still having issues, if you go down to the bevel options, which are in the bottom, maybe you hit custom profile by accident, and that by default gives you a straight line, which can be a problem if you're making multiple cuts. So I'm going to turn that off. So Control B, pull. If you want more cuts, just use a scroll wheel. I only want the one, so I'm just gonna, that looks good. I also don't want it to look, I don't want all these faces to be there, so I'm going to be in object mode, and I'm gonna right click, and then I'm gonna press shade smooth, and that smooths all my faces so that you're not seeing, the light's not hitting off every face by itself. So now it's like treating all these faces as one, which is kind of weird because there's some hard edges here that we are telling Blender to ignore, but I don't want Blender to ignore that. So to fix that, we're going to go to this object data properties down here, this little green triangle, go to normals, drop that down, and I'm going to press auto smooth. And this basically says like at what angle is the object curved at and considered like a single, where light's supposed to treat them as the same face. And right now that's set at 30, and I always like bump it up to like 65 or something. So now the only like sharp cuts in here, or the sharp edges in here, are right here where the light's going to be. We're going to texture that before I duplicate it around, but basically that's everything I'm going to. So this is essentially the base. What we're going to do now is we're going to texture it so that it actually looks nice. And then I am going to bring in assets to look at it. So to find textures, there are multiple places you can go. Some of my favorite is this website because it's royalty free and I know that I can use it. I am one of their patrons. I really like this website. I recommend it. Some other free sources are textures.com. There's a ton of stuff here. They give you like 15 credits, so that's 15 images you can download. And then the SketchUp Textures Club. This has a ton of stuff. I will say, before you use textures from a free site or anywhere, you should make sure you read the TOS on those textures so that you know that you're not using the textures in a way that maybe like that they don't want. For instance, here you can't use these textures and then sell them on your models or something like that, but they are free to use. This also gives you a limit, I think, like textures.com does, but these are all very good sources. I do know for a fact that you can use these, and I can use these and then send you a file with these textures in it and be okay. So I'm going to just use this website. So I'm going to just close out of these two. And what kind of textures do I want here? I don't know. This is what I'm going to do. I want a wood up here. I want a tile down here. I want a metal for that. So I'm going to type in tiles. Oops, caps lock is on. Whoa, look at this. This is pretty epic. I'm going to choose that. Now I'm going to find like a dark wood. So I'm going to search wood. I kind of like how this looks. I'm going to open that in a new tab. Let's see, that with that. That'll probably look epic. I'm going to find like a marble for the pillars. I'm going to keep going with the dark theme. Oops. I'm going to just open that up in a new tab for now. And then, or how about the ceiling? Let's go back to tiles. How about this? I'll choose this for the ceiling. I feel like I need one more for like this thing. Ooh, let's do like a rock or something. Rock. Because why not? That would be cool. How about this? All right, so all you have to do is, once you find it, this is pretty self-explanatory. Just find the textures you want and download them, and I will show you how to get them onto your objects in a second. I downloaded all those textures, so what we need to do now is UV out these objects, all these objects here, and apply the textures that we got. The way you could do that can get the way to do that can be very complicated. What I like to do is usually when I'm building, I'll do that as I go so that I don't have like a ton of stuff to UV out at the end. But for this, I just built everything so we can do it, and we're going to do it in a very simple way. So first thing I need to do is I need to import the textures. So the way I do that is I go to shading, and I'm just going to select the objects that I want the materials to go on, and I'm going to press new material, and now it's going to give us this node. And basically this is our texture. So right now it's a white color, which is the default color, and it is texturing this entire object white. But we downloaded all those textures, so I'm going to bring in I'm going to create a new node, press Shift A. I don't think you can see my screencast over here, but I will say it out loud. So press Shift A, go to texture, image texture. So now that I have this, I'm going to grab this node here. I'm going to bring it over to the base color, and I'm going to press open. So right now there's no image, and it's using this image that doesn't exist right now as the color for this surface, and which is why this whole thing just turned black. But to find an image, we're going to press open, assets, textures, and roof tile. So this is what I just saw that I liked, and now it's there, and it looks really bad. But there's lots of reasons why it looks bad, and I will get to that. It looks bad because it's not UV'd out yet, and I'll show you how to UV it out in a little bit. But right now we're just concerned with getting the textures into the program. To set up this material more, since that texture here, I will show you from the CC0 texture site, it comes in with multiple textures. So that was the color texture, and there's displacement, which is like your height map, roughness, normal. So I'm going to just bring in a couple more of those to make this look nicer. Well, it's not going to look that much nicer, but because it's not UV'd yet, but we can set up the material right now. And this is like super basic, so we're not going to get into a lot of detail. I'm just going to select this. I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, bring that down. I'm going to press this folder thing and I'm going to find the roughness, and I'm just going to drag this over to roughness. And then I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm actually going to press search, and I'm going to search for a normal map. And that's going to bring this node, and I'm going to drag this to normal, normal to normal. And then I'm going to click this again, Shift D, bring this down, color to color, and then I'm going to grab the normal. And now it looks cool, kind of. Still not UV'd out. So yeah, let's go to the next one. So I wanted this to be the other tile, so I'm going to press new. I'm going to call this dark tiles, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click down here, Shift A, texture, image texture. Let's drag this over, open it up. Let's go to assets, textures, dark tiles, color. And then I'm just going to make it look nicer by bringing in the roughness. This is kind of, it's not necessary because ultimately, like in Unity, you're going to have to redo the materials, because the information for the material, like this node information that we're doing right now, doesn't translate over to Unity. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I don't know how to do it, and I don't really care to do it. I just want to like get shit on my models so I know that it looks good, and then I'll deal with how it looks in Unity later. That's kind of the that's kind of the attitude I have with it. I just need to see it, but also I still want it to look nice in Blender, so I know that it'll look nice. So this one, let's add the plank texture. I'm going to call that plank, which is that wood texture we saw. There we go. Shift A, texture, image texture. Let's open this up. Assets, texture, planks, color. Let's Shift D, bring that down. Let's bring that over to roughness, and then we're going to find the roughness. And then I'm going to look for the normal. Nice. Look how beautiful that looks. What else do we have? So we did roof tile, dark tiles, marble. I spelled marble wrong, but that's fine. Oh wait, I gotta bring in the marble. Let's bring it in on this. Press new, marble, marble, texture, image texture. Bring that over, open, assets, textures, marble. Okay. Roughness. You could bring in the displacement and like attach it to the back here, but I usually just ignore that because I've never really seen it like look good. Like I haven't really seen the display. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but also it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. Open. All right, what do we need? We got both tiles, the marble, the planks, and the rock. So I'm gonna just add a second material to this object. The way to do that is select the object in object mode. I'm gonna come over to the side here in the materials property. I'm gonna press the plus button to go into here, and I'm gonna press new again, and we're just gonna do rocks. Now you're not gonna see the rock texture pop up anywhere on here because right now the entire object has this plank texture and we haven't assigned anything to this new texture we're adding to it. But I'm gonna set up the texture anyway, so that's Shift A, bring that over. I'm gonna assets, textures, rock, color. Let's bring that up, Shift D, roughness. Do normal, bring that over, Shift D, duplicate, drag this over, bring in the normal, beautiful. So now we have all the textures we just downloaded where it's in the program. It's not in the program well, like this looks like shit, but it's in the program. I do want to do a couple more real quick. So I'm going to add, let's see here. Let's go to this project. So I'm bringing this window texture, and basically what this texture is, like all it is this like gray color, and it's a PNG because there's an alpha. I brought the opacity down, so this is actually a texture you can see through. I'm going to apply this to the window. It's not really necessary. I usually only make this texture for Blender so I can actually like see out the windows I make. And I make an alpha material very simply. So I'm just going to select this object and press new. I'm just going to call this glass. And this is a bit different than what we just did with the other textures, because this one you have to be able to see through, and you have to tell the program that you need to be able to see through this. So we're going to press Shift A, texture, image texture, just like we did. And we're going to find that window texture I just had. You can see it basically just looks pitch black on here. I'm going to press Shift A, search. I'm going to look for transparent for the transparent node, which is this one right here, and then I'm going to press Shift A again, and I'm going to search for the mix shader. And I'm just going to drag that right here. I'm going to take this screen node and bring it to right there. So you want both these nodes hitting the shader. You want to take the alpha here and bring it over to right here. And then you want to go into the material options on the right, and then go to blend mode and hit alpha blend. And now you can see through this. Okay, so now all of our textures are in, I think. So now we need to UV out all these objects so that it looks good. Oh, I need to do one more. And we're going to do it right over here. Hit your light, press new. This is just the emissive material. Super simple. You can change the emissive material to whatever you want. We're just going to use the colors here. I'm just going to make it like that, and then I'm going to bring this all the way up, and now it's shiny, or it's glowing, because it's emissive. Alright, so now we need to UV out all these objects so that all these textures actually look good. The way you do that, you need to go to the UV windows, which is set up automatically in the UV editor here. So if you click that, we now have the mesh on this side and the UV maps on this side. So basically we just got to select all the objects and UV them out properly. Right now you can't see any materials because we are not in the material view or viewport, the shading view. So we're going to hit that, and now we can see all the textures that we had just put on there. This one is this is like rendering. So if I'm in this view here, I can press Shift A, do like light, point light, which I will just throw a couple around. Let's make this a bit warmer. Let's do like 200. That looks cool. I'm gonna press Shift D, Shift Z to lock it into the XY axis. And I'm just gonna G, Z, and just move it around. So now there's a couple lights in here, and in this view you can actually see the lights rendering. If you have a lot of objects and you're in this view, your computer might lag depending on how much power you've got. Obviously this is a super small scene, so it's not really a big deal. So let's UV this out. Let's start with the top here. So basically what you have to do is you need to tell the program how to unfold this object in order to apply the texture on there properly. So you need to lay out this object flat to fit with the flat textures so it knows where to go. So if you press tab and go into edit mode, can I apply? Let me see. Can I do screen? Yeah. You just can't see my screencast when I'm in this view. That's fine. Okay, so in object mode, select this, press tab, and now we are in an edit mode. I'm going to press W to make sure that I'm on this selection tool, just because I'm used to that one and I don't like having the other ones. I'm going to zoom out. Actually, let's look at the color here. So this is the texture that's on this object, and if we look in the material options in the right here, we can see that it's there. I'm going to call this roof tile. I'm going to rename that real quick. So yeah, so I mean basically I just want this to look right on here, and if we go into edit mode, I'm going to press, so in the top left over here, I'm going to select that so I can see my object over here when I don't have it selected. If I press A to select everything, you can see this is how it's mapped out. It's mapped out like a normal cube, and it didn't change from when we originally imported or created the cube object. Now there's a lot of ways to do this. The easiest way is you can just press U over here in this window, press U. You can press cube projection. I mean, this is for like real beginners where you don't know, this is confusing. If this is confusing to you, this is like the easiest way to do it. U, cube projection, and then you can go over here, press S to scale, and scale this and make it look however you want it to look. I mean, that looks pretty good, honestly. If I go back into edit mode here, press 3 for face select like this face here. If I hold Alt and select all of these, you can see that I've got this whole thing selected. And let's say I just wanted to rotate those to be like that instead of the other way. That's a good way to do it. So for complete beginner, this is like the easiest way to unwrap. And it's a way I really like to do it when I have like super complicated shapes and it doesn't matter how I unwrap it. That's probably really bad advice. Let me show you how to unwrap this properly, and I'm just going to show you with this cube because that cube projection method is going to work with basically everything here, and so I'm just going to do that because it's easy and this is supposed to be for like beginners. So I will show you how to UV with this simple object here. So basically what you want to do is you want to select the edges. So go into object mode, press tab, go into edge select, and select the edges you want to select to mark the seams of how this object is going to fold out. I'm going to do this super simple. I'm going to select, I'm going to do it like this. So basically, if I press, so I have the edges that I want to select. I'm probably not explaining this very well, but press U, press mark seam. And let's just, if you press U over here, it just UVs it out properly. So this is how it UV'd out. That looks like this is a good, like this looks good to me. Obviously I may want like this to be rotated a specific way. It's kind of up to you however you want it to look. Basically what it did there is you can see the object, so this whole thing has seams around this face, so it created this by itself, and then you can see this here, which is these two, which folded out flat because I didn't have a seam there, and then this, and this folded out flat because there weren't seams there. I kind of just explained this by like example, so it's probably not the best resource for that, but essentially you're just trying to mark where it can cut the mesh to lay it out flat. If I didn't select anything, so if I do, well, if I press A to select all, U, clear seam, and then I just went over here and I just unwrapped. Can't really unwrap this because it's all one thing. Here, I'll mark the seam on just this top cube and press it. And you can see because it wasn't cut properly, this got like deformed in the thing, in the UV mapper here. Because you can't really take these edges that are connected and push it flat. It morphs it and like it screws it up. So I'll just select these edges. So this is a different way to UV map it, but mark seam, select all, press U, and now it's normal. So yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, it. Good luck, I guess. I'm just going to do it the simple way, specifically for everyone here. Just press U in this window, press U, cube select. Let's scale that up. And then I'm going to press Alt, select that, and just rotate this. It looks pretty good. Now let's select this object. So this is our light. The only part that I want emissive is like this center part here. The rest of this, I'm going to make this tile color because that seems good. So basically, I'm going to add another material here. So now there's two materials. I'm going to hit this button and find this tile material, which is this roof tile here. And now it didn't do anything because you have to tell the program that you want which part to be which. And right now it thinks the whole thing is this emissive material. but we don't want the whole thing to be that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press A to select the whole thing. Then I'm going to select this material and I'm going to press assign. And then I'm going to press U, cube projection. And then I'm going to scale this down to fit within one tile because I think that'll look good. Now, obviously I need to apply the emissive again. So I'm going to go edit mode 3 for face. I'm going to select just the part I want the emissive to be. I'm going to select the emissive here, and then I'm going to press assign. And now it actually looks like a light. And since that's UV'd out, and I'm going to press 7 to get a top view, I'm going to press Shift Z, and then I'm going to press Tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to press A to select everything in that object in edit mode. I'm going to press Shift D, press X to lock to the X-axis, and I'm just going to bring this over here. And then I'm going to select all of the vertices in this object, Shift D again, and I'm just going to duplicate this a bunch of times. It would be more accurate if you use an array modifier for something like that, but I eyeball everything, and I think that's perfect. So let's UV some other stuff out. Let's select this whole thing, press A, press U, cube projection, and scale. I want to see the plank texture. Press A to select all in edit mode. This looks pretty good. I think I want this back wall to be the rock, and I want this to be the rock. So I've got rocks on here already, so let's select that. Select the faces we want. I'm going to press Alt and select all of these. Shift and hold Shift and select the other ones. I'm going to select this rock. I'm going to press Assign. And with those faces still selected, I'm going to go over here in the UV editor, press G to move these around, S to scale. That looks pretty good. All right, now let's go to here. So this was made with the array modifier, and the array modifier is still applied on the object here. So I'm going to press Tab. I'm going to press A to select all, U, cube projection. I'm going to rotate this so it's going the same direction as the planks. Right now there's no textures applied to this, so let's go ahead and apply the planks texture so I went into the material options here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to find the plank, which is this, and you can see it affected all of those, which is cool. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to hold Shift in object mode. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to hold Shift to select this. Press Tab to go into edit mode. Press A to select the whole thing. Press U, cube projection. I'm going to rotate this to kind of be in the orientation of the planks, and then I'm press S to scale. And we didn't see anything change because we never applied the planks material to this. So let's go over to the material options, hit this, go and press plank. No, wrong thing. Nice. And because I had two objects selected, it only applied it to the last object that I had selected. So let's go here and make sure we do the same thing. I'm going to hold Shift and grab this object too, press Tab, and I want to take this straight line, or the line, or the sides here that are kind of at an angle. I'm going to just select one of those faces just to unselect everything. I'm going to hold Alt, hit this edge here to grab all the faces on this loop. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Hold down Alt, hit this, or I'm going to hold down Alt Shift because I already got one of them selected. I'm going to select this, and then I'm just going to rotate this in the UV editor to match that, and I think that should look much better. Awesome. All right, so now all we have to do is texture this. Basically just going to do the same thing, go into edit mode, A to select everything, U, cube projection, scale this up. That looks good. Now we had made these indents here, and I want the emissive material to be in that. So let's go over to the materials option. Let's press this plus button to add another one. Let's press that material option and find the emissive material, and then we're going to press assign. And now every one of those has an emissive material. So yeah, now this is UV'd out to the way we want it, to the best of our ability. I'm gonna go into modeling. So we're in the normal shade view. I'm gonna press the render view here so we can see it how we just made it. Now I need to go into the objects. So basically the base of this world is done. There's some things I need to do first before I export it and bring it into Unity. The first thing I'm going to do is fix this issue that I see. So you can see that this part of the mesh is cutting off the part of the pillar mesh. To fix that, I'm just gonna select these, press Tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to select everything, which is just that one because we still have the modifiers applied to this object. I'm going to press G and lock it to the x-axis. I'm just going to bring it in until that's no longer clipping with that part of the mesh. And I think that's still fine. Everything still looks good. I am okay with how this looks. So the next thing we need to do is apply all the modifiers that we have in the space. This isn't required. It should still import to Unity properly, but I have had some import issues where some modifiers weren't applied. So because normally when I work with stuff that I make in Blender in Unity, I'm just using the blend file, but for this, I'm going to export in FBX. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to make sure that everything is fixed before we do that. So I'm just gonna select the objects that have modifiers and apply them. So we're gonna start with the pillar object here. We're gonna apply from the top down, and so now both of those are applied, and all these objects now actually exist in the scene. And then the stairs were also an array modifier, so let's apply that. Awesome. The other thing I like to do is I like to join objects together that may help with optimization of the space. One thing you have to understand is every object needs to get drawn by your GPU, and so the more objects you have, the more power it's going to take for your GPU. So you don't want like a bunch of objects like this around. Now obviously this space is super small and you don't really have to worry about it, but I'm going to join some stuff, like obvious things that you should join together so that it's easier for us to work with. I'm going to start with the stairs. I'm just going to select in object mode. I'm just going to select by holding shift and clicking on the objects I want, and I'm going to press Control J to join those together. I'm going to select this and this. Since we don't need them anymore, I'm going to delete them. I'm going to take this platform and the top platform, and I'm going to join them together. And then I'm also going to join it with the roof and the pillars, because why not? And the window, why not? So I'm just selecting these, holding shift to select the other ones, pressing Control J to join them all together. So now everything should be joined except for the stairs and the lights, which is fine because I'm going to apply a mesh collider to all of this, and mesh colliders don't really need to be on the lights. So this is good. This is the world that I will be exporting and importing into Unity. So let's go ahead and export this by going to File, Export, FBX. I'm calling it Tutorial World, FBX, and I'm just gonna leave everything as default and press Export FBX. So this is the base of the world, and this is what we're gonna be working with in Unity to make the world. A couple things to note with Unity and the SDK for the right Unity version, and right now in December of 2020, the version of Unity that VRChat uses is Unity 2018.4.20. So that's what I'm going to be using. You can find the right Unity version by going to VRChat and signing in, and then going to downloads here and press download Unity. It should forward you to the proper Unity version. So that's how you find that. And then download the SDKs here. SDK 3 uses Udon, which offers more control and coding for worlds. I'm not going to be using that. I'm going to be using SDK 2. You should come here and download the most recent version of either one that you're going to use. I'm going to be using SDK 2 because it's faster and it's more than capable of doing everything that I want to do specifically with this world. There's really no reason to use SDK 3 right now. So I'm going to download SDK 2. I'm going to get the most recent version for this space, and I have a specific spot for them, which is right here. And now I'm going to open up a new project, and I have all the settings set, 2018.4.20. I'm going to press create project. All right, now that Unity is open, I'm going to import the SDK first. So I'm going to go to the folder. I'm going to go to the folder where I downloaded the SDK file, and I'm going to find it, and I'm just going to double click it and let it import. Now after pressing import, it might take a second, so just sit through it and just wait for it to finish. It might take a second. All right, so once that's done, you should have these two folders here, and that is the SDK. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to import the textures that we downloaded, and we are going to import the FBX file, which is this right here, into the world. So I'm gonna start with this. This is the FBX file of what we just built and what we exported out of Blender. So I'm gonna grab this. I'm just gonna drag it in here, and then I'm gonna go to Assets. And this textures here is, I'm just gonna grab that and bring that in here. And now you can see that there's a loading thing over here. It'll take a second. And so yeah, that is in here. So now let's just start building this world. Let's take our FBX file, let's bring it right here. It's gonna set it at 0, 0. You can see that it's like pitch white. And the reason why it's pitch white is because we have two lights in here from Blender. I don't know why, but point lights from Blender always come in super fucking bright. Oh, I think it matches the intensity in Blender, which is not what we want. So I'm going to turn both of those off. Well, actually, what you can do is, we're gonna have to affect this mesh anyways before. So if you go and find your FBX file in the assets folder, which is right here, I'm going to select it and go over into the inspector. And then over here, I'm going to select a couple things. I'm gonna uncheck import cameras and uncheck import lights. So those lights should go away once we apply. I'm also gonna go down here and press generate light map UVs. Now this is important because what we're going to do is we're gonna need to bake lights and in order to make this space optimized. So to bake lights and have it to look good, your objects need to have light map UVs. And we didn't make any manual light map UVs for this object. We're going to let Unity generate the light maps themselves. It's very important if you're going to bake lights. So check that, press apply. Depending on the size of your mesh, it could take it could take a while for that to load. It took this. That was super fast. I'm just going to ignore that. But it is finished. And now we can see, we still haven't applied our materials in Unity yet, but it did bring in some of the material information from Blender, which is why we're seeing textures on here. Do you see this grid here? I don't really like that, and it's kind of annoying to me. So I'm gonna go over here in the top of the scene window, press gizmos, and I'm going to uncheck show grid. Now I don't see that. Hell yeah. I'm gonna go over here into the hierarchy, and I'm gonna right click on this, and I'm gonna press unpack, and now we can manipulate each one of these individually. I'm going to select both of these point lights. I'm just going to delete them because they're just unneeded objects. So let's get the textures and materials settled for this space. So I'm going to right click, create material. We're going to do the window. I'm not going to use this material. I'm just going to affect the default options here. I'm going to change this from opaque to transparent. If you click this, you can affect the alpha channel, and then I'm going to bring up like smoothness all the way up, and that should be good. And I'm going to take this material and drag it right onto the window option. And now I'm going to also create a emissive material. So right click, create material, emissive. And this is pretty simple. So I'm going to go over here to emission. I'm going to check that on. I'm going to make it a warm color, something like that. It's pretty good. I'm going to bring that. It changed all of them because they were all joined together. And it will change all of these as well. And now we have our emissive materials in there. And now let's go into each one of these. Why is it coming in looking like shit? I don't know why it's coming in looking like shit. That's a very good question. When that happens, I usually just save a different version of it if I need it. But honestly, I'm not even going to be using both of these. Could go into how to so let's right click, create a material for, this is the dark tiles. Dark tiles. There is not a roughness option in the standard shader. there is smoothness, and there's nothing you can put there. So the smoothness kind of acts in the opposite way of roughness. So on the roughness map, which this is all fucked up in here and I don't know why, but on the roughness map, the white parts of the roughness is the rough part, while the black is the smooth part, while on the smoothness, the white parts is the smooth part and the black parts are the rough parts. So you have, if you're going to use a roughness map, you have to invert the colors first, and then even then you can't use it. What I do is I like to create an alpha layer of that object and then put it with the main color, like the diffuse texture material, and then use the albedo alpha instead of the metallic alpha. I'm not going to do that, but that was like a super quick explanation on how to do that. And it was probably super confusing if you don't know Unity. So just ignore that. Okay, so we have this material here. Let's select it. We're going to grab our texture. We're going to bring it over here. Then we're going to take our normal and we're going to put it right here. And we're going to press Fix Now. One thing to note is these textures are, how big? 0.7 megabytes. Like, they're not huge files, but when you have 20 of them, they add up quickly, and textures and light maps are usually like the main thing that contributes to the size of your world. So to bring that down a little bit, you can select all these textures. I mean, we're only using these two, but let's just select all of them. In the inspector, we can go to max size and bring it down to something small like 512. Obviously this is going to affect the quality, but it will compress your textures. And if we bring these here, we can see what they look like now, and each texture is now 170 kilobytes instead of 0.7 megabytes. We could probably bring this up. So when you do scale these down and compress them in Unity, it should save the data on that compression. So if we want to bring it back up, we can totally do that. And right now we don't really have any lights in here, so we're not getting the full effect of this object. We will mess with that more in a second, but let's go ahead and make all these materials and apply them to the objects. So let's go in here, right click, create material. This is marble. Marble spelled wrong. We're just gonna do these two simple things. Fix now. So basically what it's doing when it says fix now, if you go to the normal map here, you can see it's the texture type is normal. It comes like by default, it comes in by default, I guess. So if you basically the fix now is just changing it from the default texture type to a normal map texture type. Oop, let's go here. Let's bring that over to where it needs to go, and then let's go to planks. Right click, create material, planks. Bring this over here, bring the normal in, fix now. Nice, and we'll probably affect these materials after we start to do lighting a bit more, but for right now, let's just get them in. Oops, create material, go away, rocks. Drag that to where we want it. I want the smoothness. Ooh, I don't know where I want that. I'm just gonna leave it right there. Shiny rocks, that could be cool. Roof tile. Oh, I realized I brought this. Should have gone right there. Tile, create materials, roof tile. Let's bring that right there. Let's bring that right there. Perfect. All right, awesome. And oh, we gotta apply this to right here as well. And let's go back to planks, bring it onto here. Perfect. Awesome. So now there's lots of places you can get assets. You can get them from like Sketchfab. Sketchfab is a good one, and then the assets store. These are two good places to get free assets, specifically for VRChat too. Well, they're not specifically for VRChat, but they're 3D assets that you can use in your VRChat worlds. Sketchfab and an asset store is a good spot. Booth is a good place for VRChat specific stuff, so that's booth.pm. So these three places are great spots for assets if you want to get assets. My asset is on this site through my store, which is booth.pm/spookyghospoo. Like I said earlier, the assets store is a really good resource for free assets. So that's right here in Unity. You can just go to the asset store, as long as you're signed in, which probably are if you have Unity open. Just go to the asset store and you can search for whatever. So let's find a skybox to begin with. I like dark spaces, so I'm gonna find like a night skybox. I'm gonna sort this by price. And look at all these skyboxes. This one's actually my favorite one to use because there's really simple ones in here. There's just like a plain night sky. I'm gonna grab this Milky Way one and I'm just gonna download that. I'm sure you've seen a lot of these skyboxes around VRChat. A lot of people use them. We're just going to import that. Now, once it's done importing, you can just go back to your scene option. If you go to assets, you can find the folder that you just imported, which this one's called Milky Way. We can go there. I don't know what this PDF is. I'm just going to delete it because you don't need it. Let's go to material, and I'm just going to drag that in. And that's what it looks like. As things begin to change with lighting, what you want to do is, just so that nothing gets affected, go over to lighting here in this tab and uncheck auto generate. You don't want that on, and you don't want to bake until you're ready. It's really annoying. I mean, unless you want it on, but I can't imagine why anybody would. It's fucking annoying. Since we don't really have any lights in the scene yet, I'm gonna just click this to disable the lighting and so that we can still see in the scene perfectly fine. We're just gonna leave that for right there. The next assets we're gonna import, you can search for like furniture in the asset store, props, anything that you want. I'm just gonna import, where is it? Volume, online store, furniture. I'm gonna import my furniture pack that I have up on Booth, and I'm just gonna pick things from that furniture pack and throw it in here, and whatever gets thrown in here, obviously I will make it free it'll be with this download, but the full thing, I mean, you're about to see the full thing. So this is the large pack, and there's a lot of textures in here, so I'm just gonna let this load, and then when we come back, we'll choose some stuff and throw some things around. All right, so that just downloaded, and I'm going to go into the prefabs here. I'm gonna organize this in a specific way. So I'm gonna just create a new folder by right-clicking, pressing create folder. Then I'm gonna press asset pack, because I'm gonna wanna separate these. This is kind of just for myself. I'm gonna bring that over there. And I spelled asset pack wrong. Cool. Because there's a lot of stuff in there. It's obviously taking a second. There you go. All right, so if I go into here, I can go into the prefabs pack, and I can choose basically anything that's in here because these are all pre-made and ready to go. I'm just gonna start selecting stuff, starting with this couch. All right, so I was kind of having issues with grabbing this couch in, and it wasn't snapping to the object. To make sure that it snaps to the object needs to have a collider on it. So we will make one custom collider for the stairs, but before we do that, I'm just gonna select the main building. And the main building is pretty low poly. I'm gonna press add component, and I'm gonna go down to mesh collider. I'm just gonna type in mesh collider, and this is gonna put a collider on the entire mesh. This isn't the most optimized thing, and you don't want to use mesh collider for like high poly objects, but for this simple shape, it'll be perfectly fine. Like, it's totally fine. And now when I grab something like this lamp and I bring it in, it's just going to snap and recognize that collider immediately, and then I can like rotate it and put it pretty much anywhere I want. Let's bring in another couch. How about that? This looks, actually I don't want that one. I want this one. This one's comfier. Hell yeah. And as you can see, every time I grab something and I throw it in here, it just kind of gets thrown in the hierarchy. I'm going to create a new game object here, and I'm going to press F2 to change the name, to rename. And I'm just call this furniture. And then I'm going to select this, 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 and this. I'm going to just throw it in there. I'm just going to throw everything that I bring in from this asset pack, and I'm just going to throw it in there so that it's organized and I know exactly where it's at. As you can see in this, since this is my asset pack, so I obviously know what's in it. I have already set up the colliders for this, and a lot of the assets that you download from like the asset store or from anywhere else will basically already be set up to be used immediately, kind of just like how this is. So there's usually not much worrying. The one thing you do have to watch out for is if specific assets come with specific scripts, because those scripts can interfere with the VRC scripts. So if that happens, if you're having issues uploading or something like that, make sure you go and look for any scripts that may be in there, and those would be like .cs files or something. It sounds confusing, but it's not. And if you don't know Unity, that was probably useless information because you don't know what to do with it, but that's fine. I'm gonna bring this plant. That looks beautiful. Let's bring some more plants. Ooh, that looks nice. Let's put that there. Hell yeah. Yeah, all I'm doing is I'm just dragging and dropping. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through this asset pack, and I'm just going to grab a bunch of stuff, and I'm just going to move them around. All right, so I placed all the props where I wanted to place them. So everything you see that I just added is part of my asset pack, furniture pack, and everything you see will come with the download of this world. An important thing you need to know is, and you'll have to do this with other assets that you download, specifically from the asset store from anywhere, you'll need to generate lightmap UVs like we did with the full shape or with the full building. So you're going to want to go to furniture pack. So whatever asset you're using or whatever you're using, go and find the FBX file for that. And find the FBX of all the objects you're using, and make sure you select them and select all of them, and then go into the inspector, press generate lightmap UVs on them. So that way when you bake lights, there's lightmap UVs with it, and then it'll look nice. I mean, unless it like specifically instructs you to not do that, but in my experience, pretty much everything I have to generate lightmap UVs. So let's just do that real quick. Press apply. Since I'm doing it on a whole bunch of objects, this is going to take a second, so I'm just going to let this run, and then afterwards we're going to go into the asset store and try to find some props. All right, now that this is done, I'm going to close that. My hierarchy is still nice and pretty. We're going to go to the asset store again, and I'm going to search for, I don't know, swords. Let's find a sword. Here are some free swords. I just want to show like how to pick up stuff. 109 megabytes? Are you out of your mind? What the fuck? Sword of Arc. There we go. That's a sword. Actually, no. Cancel. I'm not going to download that. Let's find dice. How about that? Look at that. Dice pack. Hell yeah. Let's download the dice pack. Importing a complete project will overwrite your current project settings. If you're not sure what this means, you should switch to an empty project. What the fuck? Why you gotta be so complicated? Let's get the free little games asset pack. Watch this one be like fucking weird too. Alls I want is dice. What does felt mean? I don't want jacks, I don't want marbles, physics materials, don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. Ooh, models, I probably want that. Prefabs, I probably want that. Alright, let's see how that, watch me like, you honestly probably don't have to be as picky as I am with importing stuff. Alright, let's go back to our scene, see how that little game models. Thank you, good God, why was that so painful? Let's go to our textures. I'm gonna press create material. I'm just gonna do white, and then I'm gonna press Control D to duplicate, and I'm gonna press F2 to change the name, black, white, and black. And that way I will texture this dice myself. Look at that. Cool. And I'm just gonna put that right there. And the whole point of me getting that for you, so I can show you how to do pickups, which we will do in a second. So basically what I want to do now is set up the colliders. Now we basically already did that by selecting this, like we only had 3 objects here after joining, right? So we selected the main building and we added a mesh collider. So basically now when you load in, you're not going to fall through the floor. Your character can actually stand on something. There is no collider on the stairs yet. Now you could, like, this object is not high poly enough for where like a mesh collider wouldn't work. A mesh collider would work fine. It's just you would have these like bumps going up, and we don't want those bumps. So what we're gonna do is, what I like to do is I like to right click on the object and create a 3D object, and I'll create a sphere. The sphere came in really big because we did not apply rotation and scale with this object, and we should have, but it's fine. So basically when you create a sphere or a box or a cube in Unity, the default cube in Unity comes in with a box collider. If it didn't, we could press add component, type in box collider, and get one. And basically I'm just going to reshape this cube to be the shape of these stairs here, and then I'm going to deactivate the mesh renderer for the cube so you don't see the cube, but the collider is still there. So I'm just going to press R to rescale this. I'm going to bring it down and press E. I'm going to press R to scale again. I'm going to scale on this axis. Is this thick enough? Press W to move this to the center. Then I'm going to move it this way. I'm going to press E so I can rotate. I'm going to hold down Control to snap. Well, snapping doesn't really get me to where I want it to be. I'm going to press R to scale again. Press E. I'm going to go up here and press local so that my arrows and cursor changes with the direction of the object, so that way I can move it easier. I'm going to press R again to scale. W, R. And I think that's good. So I'm just going to uncheck mesh render for this cube object, and the collider is there, and now people can walk up these stairs. And so that should be it. Now let's add the VRC scripts to this die. Now this will obviously work with anything, so I'm going to just create a new empty here, and I'm going to just for organization's sake, I'm just going to make a pickups game object, and then I'm going to take this cube, I'm going to bring it in there. The first thing you need to know for pickup, so I'm using VRC SDK 2. It's a little different in Udon, but we're not using Udon, so I'm not going to worry about that. So we've imported the SDK already, so that's already done. We just need to apply the scripts to make it so that your character can pick up this object. So what we're going to do is we're going to press add component, and we're going to add a box collider. Now this object needs a box collider so that the program knows that there is something there that you can interact. Because this is an object that's going to be moving and not staying in one spot, you need to make sure that it up here in the right side of the inspector, it is not checked static. You need to make sure this is a non-static object. So the box collider is on here. It is a non-static object. Now let's bring in the VRC pickup script. So just type in pickup, select that, and then this brings all these options. We're just going to use the default settings for this. If you wanted an object to like not fall and to not use gravity, you would want to uncheck use gravity and press use kinematic. If you don't click use or is kinematic, the object will float away if you don't have gravity checks. So unchecked, if you want it to like stay there, like how like pens do or something, uncheck gravity and hit is kinematic. But since this is an object that's going to fall to the ground, we are going to want gravity enabled, so we're going to uncheck kinematic. You need one more script, so basically you need an object sync script. Now the VRC object sync script is a script that basically tells the game to make sure that everyone else in the world can see that that object is being affected by another player. So it just syncs up what a player does with this object with all the other players. And that's basically it. It's really simple. I feel like I explained it really a lot more than what I needed to, but yeah, that's basically it. The next thing we're gonna do is lighting. Before we mess with lighting, I just wanna go back to the lighting settings. I had you do this earlier, but I'm gonna just reiterate. Go into lighting and make sure that auto generate is checked off. Like we don't want it to generate light at any point because we're going to be affecting with the directional light and other light objects, and we don't want this to do anything until we want this to do anything. These are the settings that will help you bake your lights into your map. And basically what baking lights means, it's going to save all that light information into your scene so that you don't have to render it in real time. It's why you don't lag in game. Before we start with lighting, another thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to edit, and we're going to want to go to preferences, not preferences, but this is where you can clear cache, edit, project settings, and then you're going to want to go to quality. And I like to increase my pixel light count by like to 50 usually, unless it's like a larger space. Basically, the way I understand this number, and I could be wrong, but the way I understand it is this is the amount of lights that can affect any single object at any point. 50 for this map is probably too big, but I always bump it up because I don't think it really affects anything to have it up high. And so now I'm going to hit this button here to apply the lighting. And right now all we have in the scene is the default directional light. And so now I'm going to begin manipulating the light. So I'm going to go to create empty just to keep things organized. I'm going to create a lights game object, and I'm just going to put all my lights in there. So for the directional light, I always take the indirect multiplier off. You won't see anything change in the real-time light. So right now everything is real-time and we're looking at the scene in real-time light. I like to have everything baked, and I'll show you how to bake lights properly, or at least somewhat properly. And I'll show you how I set it up. So I like to have everything baked, made my directional light baked. I like to have soft shadows on everything. I usually have my directional light pretty low. For this, I'm gonna actually have it at like 0.8, which is a lot higher than what I normally do. I think it's like at 0.01 in the Black Hat or something like that. But this is good, this looks good. The main thing is setting up the point lights for all of this and these here. So let's do that. So let's right click on this game object. We're going to do lights, point light, and we have a point light here. So let's move that around. Let's affect the settings here. So I want to have soft shadows. I'm going to do indirect multiplier 0. Actually, for the sake of this, I'm just going to keep it at 0. Basically, indirect multiplier is how much the light is multiplied after it reflects off another object. So if it's reflecting off of something, what kind of information does it give out to other objects based on that reflection? For this instance, I'm going to just keep it at 0. I don't want to worry about that. I'm going to change this from real time to baked because we want to do all baked lighting. I'm going to change the color to a much warmer tone. And then I don't use the color temperature because ever since starting using 2018, the color temperature option always like fucks up for no reason. And I have no idea why. So I just don't use it. I'm going to change this to like 8 and like 0.8 or something. And I'm just going to like duplicate these around, and this will be the setting I use for the lamps. And I'm just going to press Control D while having that object selected and move these around. And this is just going to be the point light settings that I use for the lamps. So I'm just going to move these to where the lamps are. And I'm not going to get super accurate with it, but accurate enough. Now let's do this tall lamp over here, this floor lamp. This is a little big for me, so I'm going to go over here in the top of the scene window. I'm going to hit gizmos, and I'm just going to scale this down a bit. If there's any like image or like icon or anything anywhere that is just really annoying to you, if you go to gizmos, chances are it's in here somewhere and you just need to find it and toggle it off if you want. For now, that's all I'm going to do though. I don't want this one to be as strong, so I'm going to do like 4. Like I don't want it to be as big, but I will make the strength a bit stronger. I feel like 1.4. And since there's 3 lights coming off of here, I will try to like get it somewhat in the area where it's pointing. That looks nice. And now let's do the one over here. Like I said, I'm just like loosely trying to get this close to where it looks like these are pointing. And that's looking really good. I'm gonna kind of do the same thing for these. I'm gonna press Control D to duplicate. I'm just gonna move this around. I'm going to actually bring this down even smaller to 2 meters. And I'm just gonna do Control D and duplicate these all over this. Just like that. And then I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to do Control D to duplicate all of those. And then I'm just going to drag these over to this side. And hopefully it matched pretty well. And then I'm going to select all of them again. I'm going to press Control D to duplicate all of those. I'm actually going to change this to like 3 because I would like it to hit the floor down here, and it looks a little high in some spots. Now obviously these over here we don't need, so I'm just going to select them and I'm going to delete them. Same thing with the ones that I brought down on this side. I'm just going to hold Shift, select, oops. Just going to select these. We don't need them. And there we go. This is looking really nice. I'm going to press Control D for this one, and I'm going to make this the ceiling lights. This place is pretty lit pretty well. I'm going to bring this down to like 0.6, and maybe bring this up to 6. I'm just kind of guessing. There's no like real method to this right now. I'm just bringing point lights everywhere, and they've all got pretty much the same setting. I'm going to do Control D, and I'm just going to duplicate this to all the lights on the ceiling. Control D, move it, Control D. I'm just going to select everything that I just duplicated, press Control D and bring it over. And so now I think I have lights everywhere where there are lights supposed to be, which is cool. Now we can bake. Psych, not yet. So one thing to note is that, number one, we don't have everything down that we need yet. We have nothing to save reflection information, and we have nothing to save lighting for dynamic objects and information. So I will show you how to do that. One thing to know is that lights don't bake on objects that can move. So like this cube is not a static object, and it's going to be moving around. So the light is not going to, like when we bake lights, it's not going to burn onto that object because it's going to move later. It wouldn't make sense to do that. So by having it checked not static, we're telling the program not to bake lights on there. Right now the problem is, though, all of our objects are not static. So we need to make sure that all of these objects are static. So I'm going to click this tutorial world object, which is this entire FBX that we had made in Blender, and I'm going to press static, and it's going to say change children, and we're going to say yes, change children. And then we're going to do that with the furniture. Now I had put everything under this furniture object, so I can just select that one object, press static, and then yes, change children, and now everything is static and they are ready to have lights baked on them. And we also went through and we went into the FBX in the asset pack here and made sure that everything had light map UVs, and so it should be ready to bake. The next thing we're going to do now is add a reflection probe. So the reflection probe is going to save the data on reflection, so you have reflections in your scene. So I'm going to put it under the lights options here, or the light game object that I made. Go down to lights, reflection probe, and you get this thing. Basically, it's going to save the reflection in this cube, is the best way to put it. I'm going to press this right here, and I'm just going to like try to size this within this space. My throat is sore now from talking. Where's the other thing? Usually when it clips with an object, it won't affect the reflection on that. We're just going to use the one here. It should be fine. I'll show you what else we're going to do, because we're going to put this reflection information in other spots. But this not only, well, this will signify on like what objects are affected by this reflection probe. So we're just going to leave that there. We could press bake, but if we press bake, it's going to bake all of our lights, and we don't want that yet. There's some other options in here, like the resolution size. Let's do something big. I never do big reflections. So let's do a large reflection size, and then you can mess with the clipping planes and stuff, which I'm not going to get into. So just going to leave that all the rest normal. So we have a reflection probe in there. So now we need light probe. So let's go right click on that light probe group. And now we have this. Basically, this is the information that will save, like, this is what will allow your character to have light walking around in this scene. So basically what you want to do is you want to select these yellow parts and just kind of duplicate them around and move them around. You want them kind of everywhere. And where there's more light, you're going to want more. I don't really understand light probe groups completely, honestly. They're kind of confusing. I just put them everywhere, and if there's light that needs to be there, I've got probes there. Kind of the best way to put it. So I'm just going to select a bunch of these, and I'm just going to start putting these everywhere. Whoa, so cool. I'm just selecting these with the mouse button and then pressing Control D to duplicate them. Let's select each one of these. These can be like a huge pain in the ass. Right now I'm not really worried about being accurate with it. I just kind of want to show the concept and get it down. I'm going to duplicate that, bring that up, Control D, 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 D. Okay, cool. That should be enough. That looks great. Good job. Good job, me. Really probed this world well. All right, I think now we're really close. So, really close to baking. There's a lot we can still do. There's a lot that can affect what your bake will end up looking like. So let's go to the lighting setting. I'm going to change the environment lighting to a gradient. I'm just going to use the default gradient, but you can see by changing some of these colors will change a lot of the way your world reacts. Other things that can affect your bake is, before I get there, I'm gonna change the environment reflections to custom, and it's gonna ask me for a cube map. And right now we don't have one, but we will after we bake. We'll end up getting a cube map with the reflection probe. It'll generate one, and I'm gonna use that specific cube map that comes in with that reflection probe for the world reflections here. So I'm just going to leave that blank for now, but after we bake, we should have information to put in here. The different type of light mappers can affect how your bake looks depending on the light mapper you use. I believe Enlighten is the default. I'm going to use progressive CPU, see what actually I will try Enlighten. Light map size is going to affect it too, and light map resolution. I usually keep it around 10. And I try to keep my light map size around 512. Sometimes I bake higher to get a more detailed bake, and then I'll like compress later because bakes come in, so light maps come in like textures, so they can be pretty big. So at 512, so like a 2K light map texture can be like multiple megabytes, and all of a sudden, you know, your world might be like 20 megabytes, and then after your bake it's like 50 megabytes, and you're like, what happened? It's because you generated 30 megabytes worth of light map data, which, like I said, comes in the form of like textures. I like to keep it at 512. It's simple, it's fast, and I get good enough results that I like. I don't really get too hung up on bakes. Like, there's a lot of little issues here and there all the time, and there's ways to make things better, but sometimes, a lot of times, I just take the hit on some of the bake performance for like optimization, or just like quick bakes for small light maps, because that's what I like. So I'm gonna keep that at 512, and we're gonna bake at 512. If you want to bake higher, you can. It's totally fine. I'm gonna keep it at 512, and then I'm going to also I'm going to select this. So one thing you can do, so let's go back into the inspector. I'm going to select these three objects, and there's something in here called scale and light map. So basically the more you scale in light maps, the bigger the object is on the light maps, which can give you a better bake for that object. Now, if you have a large mesh, you won't be able to get as big, and you can only get big depending on the size of your light maps. And right now, like I just said, we are going to be baking at 512, so we won't be able to go super big with a lot of these, but a lot of these meshes are pretty small, so I'm going to increase it as much as I can, starting with this. Let's scale it to 2. It's still good. 10 is still good, so I'm going to leave it at 10. If you get too high, it will give you a warning that it's too high. So I'm going to search actually render, and I'm going to select all of the objects that I brought into. So basically what I searched for was this right here, render, so I can find all the objects with this component. And I'm just going to select the ones that matter, which is all the objects that I had brought in from my asset pack. And I'm going to increase them in the light maps to 10 as well. And hopefully this will give us a good bake. And so everything is static that we want to bake. We scaled it in light maps. As you can see now, it's telling us it's too big, which this one was not. These are obviously too big. So let's go down to maybe 1, 1.2, 1.5, 1.8. All right, that seems good. We're going to keep it at 1.8, and everything should be good. I'm going to go ahead and bake and see what happens. And because I have the light map small and the resolution small, it seems like it's going pretty quickly. This can usually take a long time, especially if you get higher light map size and higher resolution size. This baking your lights in your worlds, like this is a small world, but it can take a very long time. This one seems like it's going pretty quickly. Usually what it does is it bakes your lights first, and then it bakes your reflection probes, and then your other probes. Obviously you can see it down here, and so this might take 5 minutes. I'm going to stop, and when it is finished, we will take a look at it. All right, so this finished, and it looks really good. I'm not seeing like any major issues with the bake anywhere, so I think this is fucking perfect. There are a few things that could like fuck up your bake after you have baked. For instance, moving a static object, it will you can see that there's a dark spot there. That's because that was in the way when the lights baked. We can see that it made 10 megabytes worth of light maps, which is not bad at all. Let's go to, I want to grab the information. So we can go into the inspector with the reflection probe selected. You can see now the reflections that it made. By messing with this, we can kind of see what it affects. It doesn't seem like it's affecting much. It's kind of lame. I wonder why. Probably because it's intersecting with a bunch of stuff, but that is okay because I am going to put it. So this is what we're looking at here. That's the cube map that it generated. So if we go and find scene, so we're in the sample scene. Let me save this. If you go find that scene, there should be a folder now that it generated, that Unity just made, with all your light maps, and you can go in here and affect them just like any other texture and compress them. Here's the cube map that I want to put in the lighting settings, so I'm going to take that, drag this over into environment reflections, and now it should be affecting the lights on all these objects. So you can see it definitely on this object here. It looks really good. I'm going to actually go in and go into the inspector and mess with some of these materials. For instance, this plank object. Ooh, we can make it really shiny. Why not? VRChat worlds are shiny. So we're getting that shininess after we baked because of the reflection probe. Now let's go to the roof tile. Let's make that shiny. Ooh, look at that. Super shiny. How about the marble material? We can make that super shiny. And there's our shiny VRChat world, ready for some e-boy, e-girl avatars. Perfect. Yeah, it looks good. It looks like this light was kind of in a weird spot, but that's cool. I'm vibing with this. Hell yeah, this looks sick. All right, so let's do a couple more things. We're gonna add a UI menu for the mirror. We're gonna add a trigger for not colliders. We're gonna add a trigger for chairs, mirrors, and maybe we'll find some music too or something. I don't know. All right, so first what we're gonna do is I'm going to bring in the VRC prefabs from the SDK. So I'm going to go into VRChat examples, go to prefabs 2. We're going to bring in the chair, and then we are going to bring in the mirror. And I'm just going to put the mirror right here. I'm going to go ahead and place it. And all I did was press E and then rotated it. Press W again to go back to here. I'm going to press R to scale. I'm going to bring it up. W. Let's bring this up. R to scale. Let's scale it out. That's a pretty solid mirror. We're just going to leave that. I'm going to create empty. I'm going to F2 to rename mirror. And let's bring that down and organize it. So we have the VRC chair here as well. I'm going to create new, F2 to create a new game to rename. I'm just going to call this VRC chair. I'm going to grab this chair and put it in there. I'm just going to move this around. Like, I'm not going to get perfect with it. Chairs are lame. I'm going to Control D, E. Let's rotate. Put it in its place. It's good. Bring this up. Control D. Moving this over there. E. No. W. Control D. E to rotate. Holding Control to snap. W to go back to the Move tool. Control D. Those are some solid chairs. So all these chairs have chair base and chair back objects. So I'm actually just going to search chair back or chair B for back and base. And I'm just going to select everything here. And I'm going to go over to the mesh render and I'm going to just uncheck that. And so now the meshes for those game objects are not being rendered. And I'm going to X out of there and yeah, now you don't see them, but the chairs are there, but you don't see them. So that's cool. It's exactly what we want. We're gonna, when we make the toggle, we'll turn it off because I don't want the chairs on to begin with by default. That's kind of lame. The other thing you need is the VRC world script. So let's grab that, bring that down here. So if you have local set, so that means it's showing the direction of the local object. The blue arrow is pointing in the direction that you will be facing when you spawn. So I don't want you facing that way. I'm going to press E for the rotate, hold down Control, and I'm going to turn this 90 degrees, and now the blue is facing that way, and now you're facing that way. And that's cool. That's exactly what I wanted. Before we do anything else, let's add jump. So we're going to go to the VRC world object. We're going to go over to add component, and then we are going to type in player mods. And then we're going to click that, and we are going to check this button here, press add mods, and then we are going to go to jump and press add mod. There's a bunch of other ones in here, but right now all I want is the jump one. So now you are set with that. God, this looks actually pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I did good. Sick. All right, so let's make the options. We are going to use a UI menu. So I'm just gonna create UI menus. And then I'm gonna right click here and I'm gonna go to UI, and I'm just gonna hit text to begin with, and it makes this huge fucking thing, and it's a pain in the ass, and I don't like how it does this, but it's okay. I'm gonna hit canvas. We need to rescale this and set this up so that it's gonna work with VRChat. So to begin with, we're in canvas. We are gonna go over here and we're gonna render it in world space, and then we are going to change the width and the height to, let's do 1000 by 1000, and then we need to scale. Right now, this is like 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, and 1 pixel is 1 meter. It's like a 1 cubic meter. We don't want it to be 1 cubic meter. I want the whole thing to be 1 cubic meter. So I'm gonna make each one 0.001, 0.001, And now this thing is way smaller, but we can't see it because it is sitting at position. We're at like 0, 0 somewhere around here, but this thing is sitting at 559 by 335. So I'm just going to go 0, 0. And hey, it came right to us. Look at that. Now that this thing is small, we can see it. We can do more stuff. One thing that's important is right now this is on the UI layer. We're going to want this to be on the default layer. Now, when we're messing with layers in VRChat, we need to make sure that the layers are set up for VRChat, which they are not here. The way to do that is super simple. Just go to VRChat SDK, show control panel, wait for that to open. Let's sign in, go to builder, and it's not going to let you do anything because your shit's not set up. So just hit the buttons, press do it. It gives you a warning. Who cares? And perfect. Now we can affect the layers, and you're going to want this to not be on the UI layer. You're going to want it to be on the default layer, and you're going to press yes, change children. And then you're going to need to add a component. You're going to want the VRC UI shape component. So this is the script that is going to let you interact with this in-game. So let's click that. Now we can fuck with this shit. Look at that small ass text. We are going to let's type in menu. Hell yeah. So we're just under the text option. There's a lot of stuff here. I'm going to change it to white. I'm going to change the font to like 100. Now you can't see it because the box is too small, so we can go up to width and height to change that. So let's just do 1000 by like 200 or something. For some reason it is not centered in this thing, which is fine. Let's do like 800. I'm going to change this to center, and I'm going to just move this up here. 150. Beautiful. Menu. All right, now we need some buttons. So let's click on the canvas. I'm going to actually just drag this into my UI menus game object that I made. In the canvas, I'm going to right click 3D UI, and then I'm going to do button, and then I'm going to make this like 800 by 200. I think that's the original settings from Cyan Laser's original tutorial, and I just never stopped doing it that way. If you do the drop down on the button, you can find the text option for that. We're gonna scale that up. Let's do, how about toggle chairs, and then yeah, we'll just start there. Now I'm going to show you how to set this up to work with the VRChat scripts. So basically the way buttons work is it needs to go through this on-click thing to be registered, as far as I believe. So what you're going to do is you're going to press add so that you have another one, and then you are going to grab the object, the button, and drag it into this. So it's like getting the information from itself. Now, right now, there's no information in here other than everything up here. What we're going to do is we're going to look for the VRC trigger option. We are going to create a custom trigger. There's a bunch of options here. We want custom. Press add. We're going to just go ahead and make this local because we only want this to work locally for whoever hits it. We are going to name this button. Why not? And then now let's go back to this on click. Let's do the drop down. Now you can see the VRC trigger is there. So we're going to hit that. And then we are going to go to execute custom trigger. And then there's a string there. And this is where that string goes. And the string name is basically this. And so now when you click this button, it's going to get information from VRC, execute custom trigger button. And this will do whatever it does. So now before we set that up, we can duplicate this, and there's another working button. Once you do the scripts, we're going to press, how about toggle music? Why not? And then let's do one more. Let's do toggle post-processing. Yeah, I will show you how to set up post-processing in a sec. Let's make this like that so it doesn't look so weird. That looks even weirder. It's fine. All right, so let's go to toggle chairs. Let's toggle the chairs. So right now we have this button activating itself to do this button on the VRC trigger, custom trigger. What we're going to want to do is a basic event, set game object active, and that game object is the VRC chairs. We put them all under here so that we could easily access them in here. So and the operation, we're just going to hit toggle. So now that game object will toggle. We don't have music. Let's go find some music. I'm going to go to youtube.com, and then I'm going to go to YouTube Studio Audio Library. We are going to do inspirational. Why not? And then we are going to do genre. Let's do like electronic. Where is, oh, there it is. Oh, this is gonna suck actually. No, okay, we don't want inspirational. We want calm. Yeah, that'll work. Oh, fuck yeah. Oh shit, hell yeah, I want this. Kinda sucks. I can't tell if I hate these or love these. Walking in the Sky, that's the one. So let's go to downloads. Let's find the folder that this is in, and I'm just gonna save that there. All right. Now we just need to import the song we just downloaded, which is not in that folder. It is. Let's go right-click, create folder. Let's make a folder for audio. Audio. Assets, textures, no, where is it? Start to finish. Here's where I downloaded it at. One thing to note, that if you bring in a looping file for music, if it's MP3, if it needs to loop seamlessly, it's not going to. There's going to be like a little space. I learned that's just the nature of MP3. So if you're going to have a seamless looping audio file, like bugs in the background or something like that, or some kind of ambiance, it needs to be a .wav file. But for music, it should be fine. I always put my music to streaming for if I'm going to have it loop throughout. I'm going to apply that, and I'm just going to drag that into the hierarchy. It doesn't really matter where it's going. I'm going to keep it at 2D. I'm going to make the volume at like 0.3 because usually it can get pretty loud with 2D audio. I'm also going to make sure that loop is selected on, and then I'm going to go back here, and then we are going to go into the trigger. We're going to do basic event, say set game object active. We're going to go find that object. We are going to do that, and we're going to press toggle. And now post-processing. So to get post-processing, you're going to want to go to Window, Package Manager, and then this window is going to come up. And then it's going to load, and you're going to see all this, and then you're going to find post-processing, and then you're going to press install. And then you just wait for that to load, and I'll show you how to set it up. It's super simple. To set it up, you need to go to your main camera. And in here, you're going to want to put a post-processing. You should have these now. So if you go to Add Component, in your main camera, Add Component, Post-Processing, you're going to want to put Post-Processing Layer. Select a layer that I think I usually do water because that was what was in the original tutorial. I learned how to do this. Make sure this is on no anti-aliasing, or you're going to run into issues. So make sure that's like that. And then you are going to want to right-click in here, create a game object. Let's rename it by pressing F2 to post-processing. And then you're going to want to click that. Go to Add Component, search post-processing again. Go to Volume. You're going to want to hit Is Global, and you're going to want to change this layer to the layer that you had set in the main camera under the component layer, under the post-processing layer, under the main camera, which was water. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to press New Post-Processing File, and we are going to add in an effect like Bloom. Bloom is horrible, and I hate it unless it's just a little bit, so only do a little bit. And now you can see it doing the thingy. So let's just do like 0.5. Super small. Let's also add some color grading. I do, like with my post-processing, I am like so subtle with it because I don't really like it, honestly. Ooh, should we add exposure? Whoa. Let's do 0.1. Why not? I can say that I did something. Ooh, let's do like 15. Let's do like 5. And yeah, that's it. It's activated, it is on, and the toggle should work. One thing that you need to do to make sure that it works properly, anything that's affecting this camera, if you want it to affect the world in game, the way to make that work is you need to reference that this is the camera information that VRChat should use. So to do that, you need to go to the VRC world option, and then under reference camera, make sure you pull your main camera and put it right there. So let's put this menu somewhere. I don't like how big it is, so I'm going to select this canvas, press R, I'm going to scale this down, and since spawn is right there, I'm going to just put it on this window back here. Now, because we haven't played the scene yet, I can't really tell where this goes. Like, I can't tell when it's interacting or like intersecting with something, so I'm just going to press play, so you'll see what I mean in a sec. It's fucking stupid. I don't know why it does that. So let's go back here. Now you can see that it's intersecting with that, and now we can better place it. I'm going to press E to rotate. I'm going to hold Control to snap rotate. Go back to W. I'm going to, I just want it to be kind of in front of the window. It's hard to see when it's in front of the window because the window is clear. Boom, there's some dope menus. I'm going to select this and press Control D, and I'm going to use this same thing as like a template for my mirrors. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to delete that because I don't want that button. I don't want that button. We will use the same button. So I will go into the button, press text, go under here, and I'm going to press mirror HQ. And then I'm going to duplicate this button and bring it down, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type in mirror LQ. So that will be my high quality mirror button and my low quality mirror button. But right now we only have one mirror, so we need to make that multiple mirrors. So I'm going to just select the mirror, and before I duplicate it, I'm actually going to go down here into reflect layers in the inspector for this and press nothing. All right, so for the high quality mirror, you're going to want the default layer, or at least this is what I do. So you're gonna want the default layer, which everything by default is on the, the default layer, obviously. So like that would be like pretty much every object that you see here. If you add a pickup script to something, then it will be on the pickup layer, which I will also choose for the high quality mirror. If you want players to be reflected, you're gonna want to hit players. If you want you to be reflected, you're gonna want to hit player local, and then you're gonna want mirror reflection. And I think those are all the ones that you need. So now that we did that, I'm going to duplicate that. It would be good to label these, but because there's only two of them, I know the one is going to be the low quality, and for the low quality, I'm just gonna check off pickups, and then I'm gonna check off the default layer, and now they're flashing back and forth because they're intersecting with each other. Let's go into the menu and hit these buttons, and let's figure these buttons to work with these mirrors. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to hit this one, and I'm going to select that. I'm going to get rid of it. Now let's go to the button, mirror HQ. In the trigger, we are going to add a set game object active. And then for this, we're going to, when you click this, we're going to want to turn on the high quality mirror, and we are going to want that to toggle. But when you hit this, you also want to turn off the low quality mirror just in case it's on. So let's add another event. Let's do set game object active. And let's bring in the low quality mirror right here and make sure this is selected to false. So when you hit this button, it will toggle the high quality mirror and always turn off the low quality mirror. We're going to do the same thing in reverse for this one. So in the trigger, we are going to go to add a basic event, set game object active, bring in the low quality mirror, set that to toggle. Then let's make another basic action or a basic event, set game object active. Let's bring in the high quality mirror and let's set that to false. So now when you click this, it's going to toggle the low quality mirror and always turn off the high quality mirror. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to select both the mirrors, and then I'm going to go over here in the inspector and check them off so that they're not on by default. Is that it? That might be it. So now all you have to do is upload it and test it, which we can do. I'm I'm going to come over here. So I am logged in under the SDK. We're going to build this and then we'll walk around it in VR, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to set up the Quest version of the world. So let's go to Builder. I'm just going to ignore these. If you press autofix, it should fix it though. So let's just do that. Autofix, why not? Wait, what is this? Fix to add a disabled VRC. I see, it doesn't have the spatial audio source, which we don't need it because it's a 2D audio, so I'm not going to worry about that warning. Cool. All right. This should all be good to go. I'm going to press. So if you hit build and test, what it's going to do is it's going to build it just like this would, except it'll launch VRChat and you'll be able to go in there and just look at it. And it's just uploading it locally to yourself. It's not actually going to their servers, so it's not saving it to the game. For this, I'm just gonna build and publish for Windows. One thing I forgot to do was occlusion. Occlusion is pretty important. It's really not a big deal for this space, but I will show you how to do it before I upload. You're gonna want to go to Window, Rendering, Occlusion Culling, go to Bake. And so basically this says like these settings are basically like what size of object can the player not see something behind it, and if it's in that range, then it will occlude all the objects behind that object so that the player is not rendering out everything. This is why things sometimes flash for you in games, or sometimes things flash for you in worlds. I'm just going to keep it on the default settings and hope that it works, which it probably will. It usually does. So I'm just gonna hit that. I'm gonna press bake, and this is usually pretty quick. I mean, that was super quick. So depending on the world size, like if it's a really big world size, it could take a second, but you can see like now as my camera clips through up here, the objects disappear, and that's just because it is occluding. All right, now we can upload to VRChat. So we're gonna do show control panel, and then builder, and this is just talking about the audio. I don't have spatial VRC spatial audio source because it is not a 3D object or a 3D sound, so it should be fine. I'm not worried about it. Build and publish. All right, so just gonna show you real quick. I'm just gonna call this like tutorial world. So right now it's this upload image is checked by default because this is the first time we've uploaded. If you go back into the scene, and you can find the VRC cam, which is generated when you are building a world. And if you look right here, you can see the image that it is creating, and this is the image that is your world. So I'm just gonna do that. It seems good, and actually I think it might be nicer from the other side. That looks cool. Nice. All right, so I can upload that and let it go. All right, this is the space. It looks really good. I feel like I could scale this up by like a bunch and it would still feel really good. I'm not going to because it would require going back into Blender. It's a little bright also. It's not bad though. It looks really good. I like how shiny I made it. All the buttons work. I'm gonna turn that off. The post-processing button's not working, and this is working. Awesome. The one thing I did notice is that this world is 100 megabytes, and the reason why it's 100 megabytes is because I never compressed any of the textures with any of the items that I imported from my asset pack. And so those are baked at 2K textures, and we don't want them that big because they are very high. They are large, and Quest does not like large files. And so we should fix that. So I guess those are the only 2 revisions I'm going to do, or I'm going to fix the post-processing. I might rebake because it doesn't take that long to bake in this world. Probably just going to make everything a bit lighter, not so bright, and then re-upload. And it's probably going to be good, so I'll upload the Quest version as well at the same time, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, first let's check out the post-processing button and see what's going on with that. So let's move that out of the way, and we did not put anything here. That would be why. So let's set game object active, set game object active, post processing. Let's move that in here, and this will be toggle. Now it should work. And then let's go into the asset pack. Let's go into furniture, textures. Let's just like all the fucking lights, floor lamps, and press that. Still looks good. You just lose some like detail in there. Still good. We've got bean bags. Let's go ahead and compress that. Lost a little bit of detail, but that's okay. So what you could do is you could find these. You could go into the override. So I click this, go to override PC and Linux, and I can choose to have it at 2K on PC, and then check override for Android. And so for Quest, it will be 512. And I press apply, we should get some detail back, and we do. So that's an option, and we will go with that option. And then I'm gonna go back to default, and I'm just gonna, actually we'll do that again. Override, we'll do 2048, and then override 512, apply. And I'm just going through finding these textures and compressing them. Feel like I'm missing something. Maybe not. Maybe. For this one, we will do like, let's do 1K and 512. Oh, and the rocks. Nice. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Oh, I should do this too, and then I guess we'll do overrides with this because this is a large object. Nice. Alright, so that should be everything. I am gonna bake again for the revision. I'm just going to make this like 3. I don't want these being too large. Alright, let's bake that, see how that looks, and then we'll move on. Alright, so this is the new bake. I had to do a couple other things, but I was mainly just messing with the range and intensity of the lights to get something that I thought looked better, and I think this is pretty good. It's pretty similar to the last bake, but it's a bit softer. Specifically up here, it's a bit softer because what I did was I decreased the intensity and still had the range up a pretty good distance. So hopefully that will look better. Regardless, I think it should be good. Yeah, I'm gonna upload this on PC, and then I'm gonna show you what you have to do to make this specific world work good for Quest. Alright, so I loaded it up in desktop mode just to test it, and it looks like everything is working like it should. Awesome. Alright, so I'm going to jump back into Unity, and I'm going to show you how to set it up for Quest, and I think that will be it. So all you need to do to upload to Quest is you need to upload it on the Android build version of Unity, and the way to do that is you go to File, Build Settings, go to Android, and press Switch Platforms. To do this, you need to have the Android build of Unity downloaded for it to work. If you don't have it downloaded, it will say you don't have it downloaded, and it will prompt you to download it if you want. So just go through that process and download it, and then you'll be able to. So once you have that, press Android, switch platforms, and then let it load. This may take a while to switch over, but once it does that, I'll show you what to do to get it uploaded and make sure that it will work on Quest. Alright, so now that it has switched over to Android, we can now do some stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go find the light map. So this isn't required to make it work on Quest, but I do it because I think it makes the lighting looks better. So you can see there's like a lot of artifacts now that are here that weren't here to begin with. And that's just kind of the nature of the Android build of Unity, all this green and red. I found a good way to help that is to find your scene, find the sample scene. So that's the post-processing. This is the folder that was generated by Unity for the light maps. And for one, I am going to check this override for Android, and I'm going to go over here and override for PC as well. And I'm just going to leave this as it is. And then I'm going to go over here, check that, and I'm going to change it to something super fucking small, like 256. Like that should work. Usually a super small light map doesn't give me issues, so you just have to be careful and watch it. So I'm going to take it down even super low. Since there's a lot, it should add up and help with size. And then I'm going to change the format to RGB compress ASTC 4x4 block. I don't really know what this does, but it makes it look better. And someone told me to do it, so now I do it. Now this could screw up your light maps for, it could screw up your light maps for your PC version of the world. So when you switch back your light, what I've noticed is that the light maps get like darker on the PC version, like once I go back to the PC build of Unity. So all you have to do is rebake again. And since this bake didn't take too long, it's not really that big of a deal. And you can see a lot of those artifacts kind of went away, and that's really good. So now we just need to get rid of everything that's not compatible with Quest. And for one, a big one is post-processing. So I always find the post-processing and I uncheck that. The important thing with Quest is you want to make sure that nothing in your hierarchy gets changed or moved, because everything that needs to sync with PC can only sync properly when all your hierarchy matches in order. I don't know why that got renamed, but that must have been an accident. I'm just gonna leave it for now. That's my UI system. You just, to have everything sync between, and honestly you won't notice this except for the dynamic objects. So like with this dice, or this die, for like a PC person to pick it up and for a Quest person to see that, it needs to sync between the two platforms, and the only way that happens is if it all lines up properly within the hierarchy. Try to keep these the same. You can affect textures and other things like that, like compressing these and doing what we just did. Like that's totally fine. So the post-processing doesn't work on Quest, so I always turn that off, or at least I don't think it does. Either way, turn it off. Because I've got post-processing off, I usually disable the button for it. The music does work, but I usually toggle off the music. Where's the music? I usually toggle off the music to begin with because it does take up, like it's another draw call that I can get rid of easily, and it's always playing in the background, so it's just better optimized to not have it playing, and if players want to turn it on, they can turn it on in the menu. Another thing that won't work on Quest is reflection probes. I know you can have them, but for some reason every time I do, it always causes one eye in the Quest to go black, so I try to avoid that by just getting rid of it. I just uncheck it. Now, even though you can't have probes in the scene, you can still have a probe here and have it have reflections in your world. So all these reflections are still going to be there because it's going to be defaulting to this cube map, which is actually the cube map of the reflection probe we just disabled. And to help with size, so that's basically it. All of our shaders that we're using is standard. There's a lot of shaders that don't work with Quest. This leaf shader may not work with Quest, so actually we should probably change that. Let's just do standard, and that just means it's not gonna have back faces, which is fine for Quest. I don't really notice when I have speed tree texture, and it doesn't like go black or anything like some shaders do. What it does, what I noticed it doing, which I had it in the black hat for a little bit, what I noticed it doing, it just kind of double renders in your eyes. I don't know, so like I know that can happen if you like if you have a shader, then you delete it and then you re-import it again. I know that glitch can happen in Unity. I don't think that's what was happening. Just for like safe measure, I'm going to switch it out for the Android update. So the point is, and double check your shaders and make sure that they're compatible with Android. Android doesn't, or Quest isn't compatible with like cutout shaders and things like that. I find like most shaders do work though, so you just have to be careful. If you're having issues, so if you load in and something's fucking up, just check your shaders and maybe start deleting objects that have weird shaders. But yeah, that's about it. Everything should work. It's pretty simple. Hopefully the size, the furniture, the texture sizes are small enough, and we will update this. One thing you should not do, so like if you go into the VRChat window here and you go into Builder, if we were still on the Windows version of Unity, it would say switch build target to Android instead of Windows. Don't use this button to switch your build. It will like screw things up. So the only way you should be switching between Android and Windows is by going to File, Build Settings, and doing it in here. That's just an FYI. It says it's larger than 50 megabytes, but we had overrides for multiple textures, so it should be. And I will show you this when it is done. All right, so it just finished uploading, and I tested it out, and it looks pretty good. I can't show it just because obviously it's on Quest. I don't know how to record on Quest, and I don't really feel like trying to figure it out. But both versions work, and they should work for you as long as you do the right optimization stuff, compress your textures, and that's about it. If you want this build, there's going to be a download link in the description. Everything that you see in here, so like all this stuff, like I said, came from one of my asset packs, and it is a veil. So everything in here is I'm going to include, but it won't have the full asset. Like it won't have the full furniture pack that's in here. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I feel like during the Blender stuff, I probably went like really fast. But I don't know, this turned out better than I thought it was gonna look, so sick. All right, I think that's all I got. If you need help, message me. Otherwise, peace.